Hi, this is Kirk O'Connor, and today we're going to look at making your own buttons, clickable buttons in admin using Max Buttons Pro. And this is a really good premium plugin that allows you to make some really cool buttons. We can see here rollover effect, and also this one up here, the Facebook one we've created, which is a little bit more subtle, but they allow us to go to pages within our site and of course pages outside of our site. So let's just jump back to the home page. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to go into admin now, and just to show you admin first, there we go, down there is Max Buttons Pro. So let's first of all look at the buttons that we have here. Okay, so currently you saw on the home page we have that contact us button and we have a Facebook button. So what I want to do is show you how to make a new button, and I'm going to use the Facebook one. I could add a new button which would give me a blank to start off with, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a Twitter button using this one that already exists, which is a Facebook button. So I'm going to click copy, and that's going to create a new version of that button. And what I'm going to go through the list here of the features that you've got here, the settings, and show you how easy it is to create a new button. So we're going to create a Twitter button, so I'm going to change the name to Connect on Twitter and the description to Twitter. These are just names and descriptions, they're not technical at all, so you can call them whatever you want, just something that you can remember. Now what we need to do is to find a Twitter page to go to, and I've prepared one here earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the URL of this page, and I'm going to replace that Facebook page with that one. Down here, this is interesting here, the tick here, if you didn't want to open a new window on your browser, a new window being a new tab, then you would leave that unticked. As it's another site, I always believe that you should open a new tab on your browser. Now this other one, rel equals no follow. If you are connecting from your site to an external site, you don't want to lose any of Google's link juice doing that, so normally you would tick rel equals no follow if you are connecting to an external site. Okay, so the next thing is the dimensions of our button, and you can see here that we have a width in pix, and pixels are a measurement of the screen. Each dot on your screen that is turned on is called a pixel. You'll see that we can change that to make it wider or narrower. We could go even less if we wanted. I don't know the text will fit on. We can go more, we can go narrow, and the text wraps around, but what we're going to do is we're going to set that at 240 pix, and similar with the height, we could go narrower. That might look just a little bit pinched, or we could of course go higher, and if we wanted a larger button, but what we're going to do is we're going to set that where it was, which I believe was, oops, sorry, it was 50 pix, so we're going to leave it there. Okay, the text, alright, as you can see there, let's just, this is the top line, and you could leave either of those two lines blank. We could put connect on Twitter, or connect with us is probably better, and we're going to call this Twitter instead of Facebook. Of course, we can change our font, and this uses Google fonts. You can see examples of the font you want there. Let's try something a little bit different. We wouldn't do this in real life because we wouldn't want two buttons with different fonts, one on top of the other. That would look a bit silly, so let's just pick a font. Goodia, that looks good, so let's go with that. If we can find it, probably under G, I would think. Yep. Okay, and let's have both the same, just to show you. There we go. Okay, so looking at that, probably what we would want to do is we'd want to increase our font size perhaps a little bit, and maybe this one there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so keen on that. So perhaps what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change that to something different. So let's just leave that like that. Alright, so what we want to do now is we can have our style here. We can have normal or italic. We can have bold or normal, of course. So we can change those around, and we can align these left, center or right. Let's leave them aligned center. And what we can also do is adjust the padding. If the padding is the distance between the top of the text on this one, padding top, and the top of the button. So instead of that being 7, we're going to set that to 3, and you can see that moves up. 4, maybe even 5 is probably the right way for it. And we can set the padding at the bottom. Let's just move that a little bit, and we can see then that the one underneath moves up. And we can play with that so it looks good. Shadow offset, there is a slight shadow inside that writing, so it looks like it's etched in. You can set the shadow so it looks like it's etched out if you made that a positive number, so you can have a play around with that, also the width of the shadow. Now what we have next is an icon. Now the icon we've uploaded previously is this little Facebook icon, but what we're going to do is we're going to upload one that we've created for Twitter. So here's a standard WordPress sort of upload box, and what we're going to do is upload that and insert it into a post. There we go, and there's our Twitter logo. We can position that in various places. We can position it the bottom of the text. Obviously it wouldn't show the left of the text if we wanted it, but let's, for consistency, put it back on the right of the text. And once again we've got some padding so we can move it up and down, and obviously to the left and the right. Some alt text for Google. Let's just put that in. Google loves alt text, so we always want to add in some alt text. Okay, the next one is the radius, and that is the curve around the outside, and we have the left, right, bottom, and bottom right. So let's just make that a little bit more just to show you what it sort of looks like. You could actually, if you wanted to, and let's do that, let's just make, whoops, sorry, let's just make the alternate sides a little bit more curvy. There you go, and that gives us a quite nice looking button. Let's be even a little bit more daring and make it even more curvy, just to emphasize that fact. That gives us a very nice button, but what we might do then is just to increase the padding to the right of the Twitter logo. So let's do that. Okay, so that's starting to look good. Alright, so our border is the line around the outside of the button, and you can play with that to your heart's content. Quite a nice effect. Alright, so down here we get to play with the colors just a touch, and what we're going to do, we could change our text. We're not going to change our text. What we're going to do is to change this color to a more Twitter friendly color, which is commonly a bit of a lighter blue. You can see up there that the gradient is starting to change as I move the colorizer around. Okay, so that's our gradient start, which is at the top, and our gradient end, which is at the bottom. We once again want to move that colorizer just a little bit down there, and with gradients you don't want to go too dark. It can look a little bit too forced. So perhaps just a little bit of a gradient there. And we can change our rollover color. Once again, let's make it a little bit more blue, and perhaps keep it a little bit darker than the button across. That's common, that when you press, that button hover button is going to be just a little bit darker, and perhaps then just a little bit darker. What we might do here is, I'm not quite liking that border too much at all, to tell you the honest truth, so what we'll do is we'll just take that off. I think it looks a bit better without that border. Okay, down the bottom what we have is a container. Now this is a very good way to be able to center or float your button to the left or to the right. Now normally that would be done with CSS, cascading style sheet code. However, the people from Max Buttons Pro give you the option to be able to create a container, and I am going to use a container. I'm going to center align my button so it sits under the Facebook one, and the container is set to a width which is usually the width of the division it's in. At the moment that is in a 280 pix division, so I'm going to set it the same. We have some margin at the top and the bottom, which is white space that is restricted, and I'm going to perhaps set that a bit less, maybe 10 pix at the top and the bottom. And down the bottom, this is where you set it if you want it to float to the left or float to the right, or if you want to center it, then you would display it as an inline block. So we've now created our button, and what we're going to do is to save that button. Okay, so we are now ready to add our button to our sidebar. What we do is we copy this code up here. This is what's called a short code, which is basically a code that is very short, but it interfaces to a much larger block of code. So shorthand, if you like, hence the word shortcode. So what we're going to do is come in here into our, I can't remember if I saved that, so I'm going to save it. Come in here into our widget area and go to our primary sidebar here where we've created the Facebook button. There you go, you see the shortcode for the Facebook button. Now I'm going to add the Twitter button and save that. Now I'm going to come back to our home page here and press refresh of the browser, and there you can see our Twitter button, and some of the shadow that you didn't see in the editor you can see there actually looks quite good. So if we click that button, we'll find that we actually have gone to that page. It's created a new window and gone to the page that we set it to, the Twitter page there. So that was a very quick way showing you how to create fantastic, absolutely fantastic buttons. Without much work at all, to tell you the honest truth. You can create them with or without small images added to them. This has been Kirk O'Connor. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you catch some of our other tutorials about how to add really cool stuff to WordPress.